It's all happening here on Capital Today, live on Capital TV with me, Ben Ibrahim, and Raj Aria. And Raj Aria is with our guest at the moment on standby, ready for an interview to find out a little bit more about Rockwool Asia. Yes, this is a really interesting company, and Raj is talking to Mr. Erik Gielen. So, but before we go over to Raj, don't forget, Capital Today is supported by our lovely friends at Samsung. So, but we'll more about that a little bit later. Over to you, Raj.
Thank you very much, Ben, for that introduction. Erik, thank you for being on our show today, FaceTime on Capital Today. Now, before we delve into the issue at hand, can you just share with our viewers a bit about your personal background and then move on to Rockwool Southeast Asia?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for having me here. I'm a Dutch national, but I've been in Asia for the last 7 years, working in the construction industry and especially looking at energy efficiency and fire safety in buildings. I lived in China for a number of years and now spent my time in Southeast Asia. I live in Singapore and I travel a lot around, and I spent a lot of time in Malaysia as well.
Right, right. What about Rockwool Southeast Asia? That's a name that is still relatively new, I guess, to the layman on the street. Can you just share with us a bit more about the company?
Of course. We're already in Asia for quite some time. We're having 2 factories in Malaysia, one in Thailand also. And we produce insulation material that will help you keep your building fire safe, but also decrease your energy bill, making it energy efficient. We produce in Malacca and in Klang Valley with a bit more than 300 people here. With a lot of experience, I think all in all more than 25 years of experience here in Southeast Asia.
Right. Now you mentioned about insulation. Now, not exactly the sexiest of subjects, but I think it's very, it is actually quite relevant, especially with regards to safety as well as you mentioned fire safety. Can you elaborate a bit more about that?
Yeah, it's not a topic you think about much, and it's also because you don't move much house, or you wouldn't build your house, your own house that often.
That's right.
But if you would do that, it's a very important part of your building. One of the most important things is that you want to keep your family safe. And like I mentioned, I lived in China, and China has unfortunately a track record of quite a lot of fires there because they use some insulation material that is based on oil called foam, which is combustible. It's made of oil, so it makes sense that it would burn. And I lived with my family, 2 small children, on the 27th floor of a high-rise. And I saw these fires happening around me. I went to these sites where it happened.
Right.
And for me, that was very scary because I realized that if we would have a fire in our building, starting below or even above, I wouldn't get my family out. And that is a very scary thought. So I got very passionate about fire safety. And luckily, our product does not only do fire safety, it also makes your house more energy efficient, so you can save some money on your electricity bill, and you have a more comfortable home because you don't need to run your air conditioning that much. But also soundproofing. We're in the studio here, of course, so you don't want to hear the next door studio shouting too loud. So you also increase the comfort in your home. You don't hear the neighbors or upstairs or downstairs, and that increases your level of comfort in your home.
Right, right. Of course, that's very important at the end of the day. Now, taking a step back, as you mentioned about existing competitors or the variants out there as well, but isn't there a minimum requirement as per regulations as well as compliance to ensure that it's of a certain standard to ensure the safety of the occupants?
Yeah. That's true, but with the development currently in Malaysia going more for energy efficient homes, it's only recently that you're trying to add more insulation to your home. Of course, this is a great development. The energy prices in Malaysia are increasing, and of course you wanna save energy as well as some cost on your electricity bill. So by increasing the need for insulation, you also increase the thickness, and it has not been a problem before, but now with this development, you would use materials that could combust, that could catch fire.
Right.
So it's actually a problem that's just recently coming up because of the increasing requirements on energy efficiency.
Right.
And we want to make sure everybody's aware of this and we can handle the problem before it really turns into these deadly fires you see in other countries.
Right. As they always say, prevention is always better than the cure, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Now, one thing, as you can see, recent developments in Malaysia is the electricity tariff hike, which is going to take place in 2014. So it's with regards to insulation, although it could be deemed a bit pricier, but in the long run, it should pay itself off.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that?
That's true. Of course, you would add a few percent or even a bit less than 1% to the cost of building your home or having a developer make his condos. But you earn that back in the long run because you save on electricity, not even touching on the intangible feelings of comfort and knowing that your family is safe from fire.
Right.
We did some studies around the world. I'll mention one in Denmark, where our company is from, where we saw that the energy we use to produce our material will actually be saved more than 100 times over its lifetime.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's really a lot, and it's difficult to see that in front of you how much that would be, but that's only on the energy cost to produce it. The same goes for your home. So if you have your own home, and especially with this price hike that might go up to 20%, you want to be ahead of the game and insulate your house before you get this price hike, because then you earn back the money much faster.
That's true, that's true. Now, the thing I understand is you use stone wool insulation. What is stone wool?
As the name says, it's made of stone.
Right.
I often use the example of cotton candy. Most people know how cotton candy is made with melting sugar. What we do is we melt volcanic rock. It's a rock that is abundant around the world available. We melt it into lava, like a volcano would do. And to explain the process easily, the drops of lava would fall on a wheel that turns very fast, and then be shot away and spun into a fiber, just like cotton candy. Then we collect it and we make it in all kinds of shapes and forms, so you can use it in different places in the house. And that's it. So it's made of stone. That's why the name stone wool. When it comes off the production line, it's very soft, like wool from sheep, but then we make sure it's what we call cured, so you can use it in all kinds of ways. You can actually walk on it if you want it. And in one case, we made a boat out of it, because it's also water repellent. And there's no way that germs or pests could nestle in it, so it's a very useful product. And we used the boat really to cross a river.
Right.
So
it worked, didn't sink.
It didn't sink at all. Luckily, it didn't. Yeah.
Right. Now, with regards to this, in terms of producing it, how is the carbon footprint or the impact on the environment? Because I think that's something we're also looking towards, something very important in terms of safeguarding Mother Earth, so to speak.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons our company exists, because we want to do that, and all the people working at Rockwool feel very passionate about that. Fire safety is one thing, which comes very close to me, having lived in this high-rise in China. Sure. But energy efficiency is the same. We all want to save the planet, and we have a product that can do that. Like I said, the energy we use to produce it, it's earned back more than 100 times over its life cycle. So we have a very positive carbon footprint in that regard. And then adding it into your building adds to that even more.
Right, right. Now, coming back to Rockwool stone wool, which you mentioned earlier, how does it prevent fire? What's the process like, assuming a fire does take place in that particular building?
There are a number of different insulation materials. One big part is called foam insulation. Right. Different types of foams, and they are made of oil. The raw material is oil, okay. Yes. So, of course, it will burn. If you would have a fire in your house, you're cooking, and the oil would catch fire in your pan, it could touch upon the insulation material in your house. And combustible materials would catch fire very fast. Sure. If this would happen on the first floor on a 5-story building, what would happen is the fire would creep through this combustible material and ignite all this insulation material. It is interesting to know that if you have these catastrophes and people die of fires, mostly it's not because of burns, but because of the smoke. These foam materials emit toxic smoke in different grades of intensity. And the study in Europe showed that 4 out of 5 people dying of fires die because of smoke inhalation. So imagine that you're at house with your family at night, everybody's sleeping, and there's a fire somewhere in the building, and the smoke would be emitted. It would take only a few minutes for you to lose consciousness, right, and then probably never be able to get out of the building. So what our material does, it can't burn. It's made of stone. Okay, rocks don't burn. Stone doesn't burn. So Rockwool insulation makes sure that if there is a fire, which of course we cannot prevent, it can't spread. So if you have the insulation material in the wall or on your roof, if the flames would hit it, nothing would happen. So it can contain the fire in the room that it's happening in. Right. And that would give you and your family a lot of time to escape the building. That's the first concern. Make sure you can get out. Of course. Make sure that you survive this fire. But it would also give firefighters more time to come in and put it out and protect the building and protect your albums with pictures of the childhood and all that. Definitely. So the first and most important concern is getting the people out alive. And the second is making sure that the loss to the building is as little as possible.
Right. Well, it's quite ironic that the oil-based foam actually exacerbates the situation by
Yes.
actually creating the smoke and all these toxic fumes and all that, which could actually lead to loss of lives.
Yes, yeah. For me, it's very difficult to understand why it's used. Some applications are very suitable for this insulation, especially cold storage or below ground storage, where there's no risk of fire. Of
That's
course,
right.
you can use this material, but in any place where people are, you shouldn't use this. I've been in these big box supermarkets in Malaysia, and if you look up to the ceiling, you actually see open foam insulation materials. Imagine that this would catch fire with hundreds of people or thousands of people in this shopping mall or supermarket, not really knowing where the emergency exits are. You need to go to this turnstile with hundreds of people at the same time. It would be very difficult to get all these people out.
And of course, people are generally take this kind of thing for granted because you don't see it happen very often. But when it does, that's where pandemonium, panic will take place, and that makes the situation a lot worse.
Unfortunately, in many countries, the government will act only when there's a catastrophe. We saw this in China, where you had these terrible fires. And then the government said, okay, we need to stop this. So they built legislation that you can't use it in certain circumstances, in certain buildings. And because there is not that much foam yet in Malaysia, there's a great opportunity to avoid these pitfalls and start off with a clean sheet and making sure that there's no combustible materials.
Right. Now you touch a very good point just now in terms of perhaps very reactive measures when in terms of something adverse happening. What are the challenges you think with regards to ensuring buildings, not just in Malaysia, perhaps in this region, in order to be fire safe?
Well, the product is widely available, not only from us, from different companies. So it's not only for us that we do this. So you can buy it. It's only that the government needs to make sure that there is a requirement in legislation, because it does add cost, and it's only a little bit, but developers tend to want to save cost on everything, and as we all do. I don't want to blame them. Everybody wants to keep some extra pocket money. But this is too important an issue to be regulated by the developers or by the developers itself. So we would see a good requirement from the government saying you need to make sure your building is fire safe. And of course the same goes with energy efficiency.
Right.
You want to make sure that all buildings built now or renovated in Malaysia are highly energy efficient.
Green buildings using green technology?
Yes, of course our material is very often used for making buildings green. I think the energy ministry in Malaysia has a very low energy or a green building, and they have used our material for that as well.
Right, right. Now speaking about buildings using your material, what are the other more notable buildings in Malaysia which uses rock wools, stone wool insulation?
Well, the Kuala Lumpur International Airport uses our material.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah, that's very good. I think close by is an IKEA.
That's right, just around the corner.
Yeah, they are using our material as well. So, and most of these companies, they use building codes from their home country because they want to have the same standard across the world. And in many countries, it's forbidden to use combustible materials for a very good reason.
For obvious reasons, yes.
Exactly. So also when they have a shop here in Malaysia, they would use non-combustible materials.
Right. Now I understand that Rockwool also plays a very proactive role in terms of creating awareness by engaging the authorities, the public. Can you just share a bit more about the activities that you have done on the ground?
Yeah, I can share a very recent activity we did. We had an event with Bomba in 2 weeks ago, where we had a seminar on fire safety, an international fire safety seminar with speakers also from Europe, where we touched upon this issue. And we had more than 100 people from government and architects and developers to show them what fires do.
Right.
And we had some very scary pictures of fires that happened in Malaysia. A fire that could happen anywhere, like a kitchen stove that would ignite. And we saw a lot of these foam fire victims, where you had a lot of smoke and people dying of intoxication rather than burns, but also burn victims.
Of course.
Small children, and it was horrible to look at, to be honest. It was an external speaker who showed all this, but it was very much a wake-up call.
That's right.
Because it brings it close to home.
Yeah.
Because it could be you, it could be your neighbors.
Loved ones and all that. Yeah.
Yes. So we had a number of presentations on fire safety in buildings, and what was very interesting, we did a demonstration on the performance of different insulation materials in a roof setup. So we used a a standard setup,
Okay.
an official testing method.
Right. You did a simulation for
Exactly,
for
a
the
simulation,
participants, yeah.
and we wanted to make sure it's scientifically correct.
course.
We don't want to make up.
Controlled environment, yes.
Exactly. So we had three setups, two with foam-based insulation material and one with stone wool. And we lit a fire under the stone wool roof first and let it burn, and then we started on a foam-based material. Ignited that, and then the third one. And within 4 to 5 minutes, something occurred that is called flashover. That means the smoke on top of this roof self-ignite.
Oh dear.
So instead of a flame reaching the smoke, it became so hot that it was self-ignition, and there's a big ball of flame and a lot of black smoke. And we saw that many of our visitors who were watching this, they really got scared. That was also a feedback we got. This is really scary to know. I would never want to live in a building with foam
That's right.
insulation. A lot of smoke, a lot of heat, of course. And it was a very good way to show the effects of fires, the effect of smoke that can happen.
Right.
We used a 4 square meter roof setup, but the smoke was enormous.
Right.
So imagine you live in a building that has a 50 square meter roof, or like I said, a supermarket
right.
with a few hundred square
Imagine
meters.
multiply how many times
Yes.
over.
It will take only a few seconds to fill a room with smoke,
Right.
and then you have a tough time to get your family
Understand,
out.
right? Definitely an eye-opener, something that we all need to consider. Eric, we have run out of time. Any last parting words for our viewers out there?
Yes, be aware of fire. It's a very dangerous enemy that can be hidden anywhere, and make sure that you have your building safe. And if you buy an apartment, go to the developer or the salesperson and ask about this. Ask if the building is fire safe and if they're using fire safe insulation.
Definitely. There you have it, Mr. Erik Gielen, the Marketing and Public Affairs Director of Rockwool Southeast Asia. Thank you very much for your time, for that very informative input with regards to the importance of having the right insulation to safeguard not just your own lives, but that of your loved ones as well. Well, now it's that time where we have to look in terms of how Bursa Malaysia is performing this morning. So let's have a look at the report here with Hema Subramanian before we take a commercial break.
Interesting discussion over there. And now let's take a look at Bursa opening. The FPM KLCI slipped 0.22% in early trade on Thursday, weighed by losses at key blue chips including Tenaga and Genting, in line with the retreat at most regional markets. At 9:05 a.m., the FPM KLCI fell 4.12 points to 1,838.70. Losers led gainers by 76 to 71, while 109 counters traded unchanged. Volume was 21.6 million shares, valued at 18.86 million ringgit. The top losers included PPB, Tenaga, Apollo, Aeon, Genting, Telecom, Hong Leong Bank and Felda Global. Hong Leong IB research in a market preview Thursday said that, as cautioned earlier, volatility could return as recent better than expected US payroll numbers, the US congressional budget accord and a deteriorating KLCI daily technical readings could trigger more wild swings ahead. Until the Fed meets on 17 to 18 December FOMC meeting. The research house said key resistances are 1,850 psychological barrier and 1,860, while supports fall on 1,836 and 1,826 and 1,820. A breakdown below 1,820 will trigger further sell down towards 1,800 to 1,811 territory. Having said that, they remain optimistic of further KLCI upside in the medium to long term, and investors should look beyond the US noises and take any volatility created for opportunity. Positive catalysts are diminishing macro amid more synchronized growth among major economies. Low interest rates environment to sustain despite noises of tapering. Improving domestic fundamentals from the 2014 budget given the budgetary reforms and fiscal discipline. Elsewhere, Asian shares slipped to a 4-week low on Thursday on heightened expectations the Federal Reserve may act sooner than later to unwind its stimulus after a provisional budget deal in Washington eased some of the fiscal drag on the US economy. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan eased 0.1%, adding to Wednesday's 1.1% decline. Well, looks like the investors should look forward for any opportunity on the way. More updates to follow later, and as for now, over to you, Raj.
Thank you very much, Hema, for that update with regards to Bursa Malaysia this morning. We'll now take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we will have more corporate news and business developments here on Capital Today. So stay tuned.